The reason the state of Israel is referred to as an apartheid state because the segregation within it between Israeli Jews and Palestinians is very, very effective. Being an Israeli is a relatively modern new term. You know, Israelis are a new thing. It's a nation that was created by the Zionists who came to Palestine. And we also know today is engaged in a brutal genocide, a cruel and brutal genocide of the Palestinian people. This injustice that has been perpetrated against that is being perpetrated against the Palestinian people must be brought to an end.
Hello, and welcome to Behind the Veil, a podcast series powered by American Muslim Today, a non-profit national media platform. I'm your host today, filling in for our regular host, Dr. Amir Khan, managing host for AMT. My areas of interest generally is healthcare innovation and patient-centered care, but today we have a unique opportunity. Our guest today is the voice of consciousness whose life journey redefines courage, identity, and justice. Miko Peled, born in Jerusalem to one of Israel's most prominent Zionist families. His grandfather was a signer of Israel's Declaration of Independence, and his father a general in the 1967 war. Miko, however, took a different path. After serving in the Israeli army, he began to question the very foundations of Zionism, transforming into a global advocate for Palestinian rights. He is the author of The General's Son, Journey of an Israeli in Palestine, a deeply personal account of awakening and truth and injustice. The story of the Holy Land Foundation 5, which exposes the injustice faced by Muslim charities in post-9/11 America. We're honored to welcoming the author, the activist, and the peace advocate, Miko Peled. Welcome to Behind the Veil.
Thank you for having me.
Miko, let's start with the beginning. You were born into one of Israel's founding families, and yet you choose to stand against its establishment narrative. What moment truly changed your view on Zionism and led to embrace the Palestinian cause?
Well, thank you again for having me. I'll just add the last line in my bio, which is the founder and president of Palestine House of Freedom in Washington D.C. We've been here about a year and a half. We have the space right here on Capitol Hill. But as to your question, it was not a moment. It was a series of experiences over several years that brought me to the point of questioning the very legitimacy of Zionism, the very legitimacy of this idea of the so-called State of Israel. And like you said, I come from a family that was deeply, deeply involved in the establishment and the running of the apartheid state, or the State of Israel. And it was, like I said, it was a gradual process over several years. It was gradual, several experiences. Probably the most significant is meeting Palestinians. The reason the State of Israel is referred to as an apartheid state because the segregation within it between Israeli Jews and Palestinians is very, very effective. And it is absolute. I mean, there's an absolute segregation where people like myself enjoy all the privileges of living in a modern, what you might call a modern democracy, whereas Palestinians live with no rights. they live, or with very few rights, and no laws that protect them. Everything from how much water you receive as an Israeli Jew, which is really unlimited, whereas very limited access to water, electricity, travel, freedom to move, and on and on. But basically, as a Palestinian, there's no legal protection. And so today, I mean, like we've seen over the last 2 years, the genocide in the Gaza concentration camp. But besides that, killing a Palestinian brings about no consequences if you're an Israeli. The police rarely even come to investigate or open a file. So I realized that because I embarked on what I call the subtitle of my book, The General Son, is Journey of an Israeli in Palestine. And so being an Israeli is a relatively modern new term. You know, Israelis are a new thing. It's a nation that was created by the Zionists who came to Palestine. And then discovering that the country in which I was born and raised and lived was not Israel. It was Palestine. Israel is the name of the regime that had occupied Palestine and is governing it through what we know today is a system of apartheid. And we also know today is engaged in a brutal genocide, a cruel and brutal genocide of the Palestinian people.
Of all the questions that one wants to ask, one that comes straight out is, how come we have got to this stage where there is no example on planet Earth where two communities living together and yet their rights, their system of living, the deprivation on one hand and the privilege on the other, and yet they are trying to share one piece of land that is not even properly separated. How would you come about to analyze the situations, and how have we got to this state of affairs right now where you just described killing can happen?
Let me challenge some of the assertions you made. First of all, they do not share, they do not live together. And we didn't get to this point now. This has been the reality since 1948, when the apartheid state was established. So if we look at the years for 1947, 48, 49, 50, and we see what is happening now in Palestine, there's a direct connection. There's no difference. The state of Israel was not established in order for Israelis and Palestinians to live together. It was established in order to replace Palestinians with Israelis. So the objective of annihilating the Palestinian people, the objective of destroying the rich Arab and Muslim history of Palestine that goes back almost 2,000 years, was one of the objectives, and replacing it with a mythology which states that the Jewish people today are the descendants of the ancient Hebrews who lived there some 2,000-3,000 years ago, that it is a Jewish land, that God gave them the land, and on and on and on. These assertions have been made very, very clear from the very beginning. Just a very few short years after that, the world allowed and recognized the commencement of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, the genocide of the Palestinian people, and the creation of an apartheid state in Palestine. So this is nothing new. What we're facing now is not new. What we're facing now is a continuation of something that was legitimized almost 8 decades ago. And so there's really no reason to be surprised. And again, I'll say this, the idea was never, they do not share the land. They do not live side by side. They do not live together. The segregation was created as the state was established. The killing, the ethnic cleansing, the apartheid system was established immediately. All of these things took place as soon as the world allowed the establishment of this Zionist state, which is not a Jewish state; it's a Zionist state. And I think this it's important to make that distinction, to realize that distinction. And there's really never a stop. There were just escalations over the years.
If the world allowed this to happen, and the vast majority of people in the region, in the countries that accepted this happening, can it be undone? And the question is coming from a Jewish community perspective, who, and a vast majority of them especially, have accepted this as being part of how their growth and their vision and how to create a bigger Israel.
First of all, this has the Jewish people early on, when Zionism just was establishing itself. The majority of Jewish people rejected it, and to this day, a great many Jewish people reject it. Now, there are several reasons that they reject it. The observant Jews reject the notion of a Jewish state because Judaism is a religion; it's not a nationality in the modern sense. The most notable rabbis throughout history have always said the people of Israel are a people united by their religious laws, by following their religious laws, not by language, country, culture. There's nothing that unites European Jews and Yemeni Jews, for example, but their faith, but the fact that they live according to a particular set of laws. It must be undone. This injustice that has been perpetrated that is being perpetrated against the Palestinian people must be brought to an end. And many Jewish people stand up, both very observant Jewish people and secular Jewish people stand up against it and have been speaking out against it from the very beginning. But it's the international community, that's not enough. The international community has bought into the concept of Zionism, particularly the United States and Europe. It's up to people of conscience, regardless of where they live around the world, to push their governments to reject Zionism, to end this normalization of the crimes against the Palestinian people. And we see even governments today, countries today that were always very supportive of the Palestinian cause, countries like Pakistan, countries like Indonesia, countries again, the Arab world, the Arab countries, who are either normalizing relations or are close to normalizing relations with the apartheid state. And that is a very, very dangerous trend. That is how we end it. And it must end, because the injustice perpetrated against the Palestinian people is one that is horrific. There's almost hardly find the word to describe the horrors under which Palestinians have to live. But it's not a Jewish thing, it's a Zionist thing, and it's a white supremacist, settler colonial ideology that is allowing this to happen.